$20,000.
Led by the Ministry of Education and Youth, the mission is for a brighter tomorrow. The 2021 Patterson report made it clear. We need to ensure better quality education throughout all levels of the system. While the ministry will lead the charge, we need all stakeholders to get into position to help Jamaica become a more globally competitive nation. Students, educators, parents, civil society, business people, media and communities. Jamaicans across all sectors can play a role. The journey to a brighter tomorrow starts now. Deliberate action is being taken on 7 strategic priorities up to 2030. 7 pillars of change to transform education. Better governance for better outcomes. Efficient spending and enhanced strategic focus. Improved and equitable access to quality early childhood education. Improved quality of teaching and curriculum delivery. A higher education sector that is coherent, equitable and well-resourced. Developing critical thinking, lifelong learners who are creative, innovative and productive, contributing to the country's sustainable development. Technical, vocational education and training built into the secondary level to support the development of entrepreneurial skills. World-class facilities and infrastructure in a technology-enabled sector, and increased access at all levels of the system to equitable and sustainable funding. These are the 7 keys to unlocking our next level of exceptional learners and critical thinkers. With a lifelong desire to learn, Jamaica's youth have the power to not only elevate their own standard of living, but also to enhance the well-being of all Jamaica. As we push forward with Trend, we will create educational systems of success, assigning the best people to manage the process. Give more attention to early childhood education so we can stimulate excellent learner performance from the start. Empower our educators to create learning experiences that transform minds and lives for greater impact. Build an aligned network of tertiary learning institutions focused on delivering accreditations that strengthen the impact of our tertiary graduates. Provide physical and technological learning spaces that deliver equitable access and resources to all types of learners, and optimize educational budgets and resources to guarantee greater results from early childhood to tertiary level learning.
So that Jamaica may under God increase in beauty, fellowship, and prosperity, and play her part in advancing the welfare of the whole human race.
Let's trend so Jamaica will continue to be prosperous and more globally competitive. Trend, transforming education for national development, changing minds, changing lives for a brighter tomorrow. In a globalized world where nations must empower their people to become innovative citizens, Jamaica is ready to set the trend, transforming education for national development. Led by the Ministry of Education and Youth, the mission is for a brighter tomorrow. The 2021 Patterson report made it clear. We need to ensure better quality education throughout all levels of the system. While the ministry will lead the charge, we need all stakeholders to get into position to help Jamaica become a more globally competitive nation. Students, educators, parents, civil society, business people, media and communities. Jamaicans across all sectors can play a role. The journey to a brighter tomorrow starts now. Deliberate action is being taken on 7 strategic priorities up to 2030. 7 pillars of change to transform education. Better governance for better outcomes. Efficient spending and enhanced strategic focus. Improved and equitable access to quality early childhood education. Improved quality of teaching and curriculum delivery. a higher education sector that is coherent, equitable, and well-resourced, developing critical thinking, lifelong learners who are creative, innovative, and productive, contributing to the country's sustainable development. Technical, vocational education and training built into the secondary level to support the development of entrepreneurial skills. World-class facilities and infrastructure in a technology-enabled sector, and increased access at all levels of the system to equitable and sustainable funding. These are the 7 keys to unlocking our next level of exceptional learners and critical thinkers. With a lifelong desire to learn, Jamaica's youth have the power to not only elevate their own standard of living, but also to enhance the well-being of all Jamaica. As we push forward with Trend, we will create educational systems of success, assigning the best people to manage the process. Give more attention to early childhood education so we can stimulate excellent learner performance from the start. Empower our educators to create learning experiences that transform minds and lives for greater impact. Build an aligned network of tertiary learning institutions focused on delivering accreditations that strengthen the impact of our tertiary graduates. Provide physical and technological learning spaces that deliver equitable access and resources to all types of learners, and optimize educational budgets and resources to guarantee greater results from early childhood to tertiary level learning.
So that Jamaica may under God increase in beauty, fellowship, and prosperity, and play her part in advancing the welfare of the whole human race.
Let's trend so Jamaica will continue to be prosperous and more globally competitive. Trend, transforming education for national development, changing minds, changing lives for a brighter tomorrow.
Let me check if it's any other.
In a globalized world where nations must empower their people to become innovative citizens, Jamaica is ready to set the trend, transforming education for national development. Led by the Ministry of Education and Youth, the mission is for a brighter tomorrow. The 2021 Patterson...
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my. Good morning. Good morning. We welcome all of you here today. We start with the Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education and Youth, Dr. Casson Troop, our Permanent Secretary, Dr. Adrian Stokes, Chairman of the Education Transformation Oversight Committee, Mrs. Winnie Berry, Deputy Chief Education Officer for Curriculum and Support Services, is on her way. Mrs. Vivienne Johnson, who is the Senior Director, Planning and Development Division. Members of the Education Transformation Oversight Committee, members of the Ministry's Executive Management Team, and members of the media, and for those joining us on MOEY and JIS social media platforms, YouTube and Facebook. Good morning once again, and thank you so very much for being here. This is our quarterly Education Transformation Oversight Committee ETOC press conference. And as you may know, ETOC oversees the implementation or the progress of the TREND initiative within the Ministry of Education, the goal to transform education for national development. We have a few presentations today, and it's simply to bring you up to date with the progress and the strides that we have made. We will start with an overview from Dr. Adrian Stokes, our chairman for the ETOC committee. Feel free to make him feel welcome.
Do you have a clicker or something that move the slides along? All right, morning everybody. Good morning. And in the interest of time, I will say all protocols observed and wishing everybody, welcoming everyone. And a special good morning to those following us on the various digital platforms. Welcome to another press conference on the transformation of education in Jamaica. I would like to recognize and commend the persons who serve as members of the Education Transformation Oversight Committee, or ETOC for short. These persons have been providing excellent oversight to the Ministry of Education as it seeks to implement the recommendations made in the Reform of Education in Jamaica 2021 report, or what we oftentimes call the Patterson report. I must also recognize the collaborative effort of the executive leadership at the MOEY, working closely with ETOC as we seek to execute our mandate of providing governance and oversight to the MOEY. Minister Favour Williams has also been very supportive of our work, and I want to highlight that. The education transformation effort, as we know, involves a lot of heavy lifting, which can only be done successfully if the key stakeholders are aligned, working together. Therefore, the high level of cooperation that we have experienced at ETOC goes a long way in driving the implementation of the initiatives. Of the 365 recommendations from the Patterson report, work has started on 136 initiatives. Well, 7 initiatives have been finalized and 129 are in progress. Of the 129 initiatives currently underway, 128 of them are on track, and 1 initiative is lagging. Overall, ETOC sees this as good progress being made with implementation. The lagging initiative is the Jamaica Teaching Council Bill, which, when the minister speaks, she will add a little bit more context as to the delay there. But suffice to say, that bill is still going through the various parliamentary review procedures before it is finalized. Let me use this platform to encourage the Minister, along with her parliamentary colleagues, to move with alacrity, Minister, to finalize the review process and to pass the bill so that we can begin to see the benefits of the legislation in the education sector. Of the initiatives completed, I indicated that 7 initiatives have been finalized, and this is a good thing. So we're not just implementing, but some initiatives have been completed, 7 to date. And just to give you a sense of what they are, the structural review of the National Council on Education to strengthen its capacity. The other initiative to prepare and disseminate NEI's inspection reports. There was an initiative as well in terms of to make public reports on schools' financials, conducting an institutional review of the Early Childhood Commission, request approval for increased budget to support in-service training of practitioners at the early childhood level, training of TVET officers, and work to improve the capacity of pre-service teachers at all levels of the education system. So those initiatives have been finalized, and we should see the benefit of the work that has been done there. So the number of initiatives, I also just want to give you another view of the data in terms of the ongoing work. To summarize the number of initiatives underway by pillar. So 33 initiatives have started under governance, 11 for early childhood, 37 for teaching, 14 tertiary, 11 TVET, 16 for infrastructure, and 7 finance related. Now, as you can see, there has been a broad implementation across all the various pillars, with a particular emphasis on 2 pillars, the curriculum, teaching, and teacher training pillar, as well as the governance pillar. I would like to remind everyone about the implementation strategy we have adopted. First, the Patterson report have what are called priority recommendations. These are far-reaching recommendations designed to solve problems in critical areas of our education system. For example, under the teaching, curriculum, and teacher training pillar, I will give you a sense of some of the recommendations, what we call the priority recommendations under this pillar. So for example, we are to promote an education philosophy. That work, I believe, has been finalized. The agreeing a new education philosophy and agree it across the education sector, and then to drive the broad acceptance of that philosophy. Another important recommendation under this pillar is to consider how incentives can be strategically utilized to attract, retain, fill gaps, and improve quality in the teaching profession. Link professional development to professional advancement, and importantly, enhance the capacity of the MOEY for implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of curriculum. Now, for the most part, work has started on the priority recommendations in line with the spirit of the Patterson report. There are still a number of initiatives, as you can imagine, yet to get underway, and these will start in the coming quarters in line with the agreed project plan. Overall, for this quarter, we continue to see good progress with the implementation of the various recommendations from the Patterson report. For the most part, all initiatives are on track, well, except one, as I indicated earlier. And we see this at ETOC, we classify this as a high degree of implementation to date. Some of the work being done in transformation will begin to show results in the long term, medium to long term. We are taking the time to build a stronger foundation that will deliver better outcomes in key areas like early childhood education. Progress, of course, will be incremental at the start before we begin to see a broad-based lifting of standards across the entirety of the education sector. Our goal is to ensure that the work we are doing is embedded by key institutional arrangements. In other words, the initiatives implemented must be sustainable. They should be there to deliver long-term results. Notwithstanding our optimism about the future, given the work that we're doing, ETOC and Jamaicans at large cannot be comfortable with the results we're seeing in certain areas of the education system. For example, at the CSEC level, in key areas like math and English. The recent CSEC results in these two critical subject areas are not in line with the brighter future we hope for education. This is why ETOC has encouraged the ministry to come up with tactical initiatives aimed at materially boosting results in math and English at the next sitting of CSEC. When we examine the CSEC performance data, we observe some not so surprising characteristics. Students who perform poorly tend to have an attendance rate at school at or below 75%. A significant amount of the students who are underperforming are generally from low socioeconomic communities. What is clear is that the tactical initiatives must be well targeted at the root of the performance issues. From our interaction with the MOEY, there are 4 focus priority areas to drive the tactical response in math and English. I will just give a quick summary. 1, extended learning hours and greater teacher support. 2, increasing the accountability across the various layers of the education system. 3, greater focus on performance measurement and management. And 4, enhanced reward and recognition programs for teachers doing a great job. ETOC is urging all stakeholders in education to work collaboratively with the MOEY so that the program can be a success. Special emphasis will be placed on schools where the pass rates in the targeted subjects are at or below the national average. The immediate goal, that is the goal for 2025, the next sitting of CSEC, is to get the results back up to the 2019 levels for math and English. I would like to conclude my remarks by reflecting on the recent PEP examination results, especially for language arts and mathematics. Importantly, in 2022, when we look at the PEP 4 cohort for mathematics, 49% of the kids were rated as beginning, basically well below what's required. But notice that in 2024, tracking the same cohort in mathematics, 55% of the kids are now rated as proficient in mathematics. This is a remarkable turnaround in performance, ladies and gentlemen, and shows what is possible in education. The education reform process is in earnest. A lot has been done to drive the implementation of the recommendations. We are confident at ETOC that this work will build important momentum as we seek to increase the number of recommendations that are fully implemented. I must also note that we have contracted the Mona School of Business to conduct a comprehensive review of the Ministry of Education with a view to provide us with recommendations that will lead to a modernized ministry that is fit for purpose. As the transformation work unfolds, there will be need to increase the talent pool at the MOEY to give it the capacity to pull off what is indeed a massive overhaul of the education sector. ETOC urges the leadership at the ministry to proactively plan for this eventuality to eliminate bottlenecks. Finally, to the Jamaican people, I would like to reiterate that ETOC is committed to this vital work that is ongoing to improve educational outcomes in Jamaica. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Stokes, Chairman of ETOC. And as we continue with our presentations today, we move over to our Permanent Secretary, Dr. Casson Troop. Make her feel welcome.
Thank you so much to our moderator. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
And special good morning to our Minister, the Honorable Fable Williams, and to our Chairman of ETOC, Dr. Adrian Stokes. We are really, really grateful for the support of the Oversight Committee, as expressed earlier, and we are here in partnership to deliver the transformation. Let me greet my technical team members in the audience. I see my DCOs, they are here. My head of math is here. You know, my technical officers from the infrastructure unit. I greet you all. It's really a fantastic time in education. You heard the chairman earlier. He said that ETOC is pleased with the progress. And I know that sounds hard because when you look at the performance data, it's not looking like what we would want as a country, but we're appealing for patience and we are trying to inspire optimism to show you that we are going to get there. It's not easy. The evaluation was done of the system, 365 recommendations, and unpacking those and implementing, it's a demanding task. In addition to the eventualities, we had burial, you know, that we weren't preparing for. But I'm so grateful today that I can stand and tell Jamaica that we were able to open school on the 2nd of September. You may not know, Jamaica, how hard that was for us, but I must acknowledge the hard work and commitment of the team in the Ministry of Education and our partners in the field. You made it happen, and today all our learners are in the face-to-face environment. I greet you with that in mind and just say good morning to our listeners in the public space, on the virtual space. It's great to be here this morning to share some specifics. The chairman gave some oversight in terms of the broader view of things, and I'm just here to highlight some of the work that we have done in the last 3 months, that's the last quarter, in the 7 pillars. We won't be able to do all of them because we're working on 136 recommendations, 7 achieved, so we are 29 now, so I won't be able to go in all of those, but I'll give you some highlights per pillar. So let's move with the presentation. So as it relates to pillar 1, all right, so the chairman went into that already, so I won't delay much. All right, so pillar 1, the recommendation spoke to the strategic review of the Ministry of Education so we can remove the inefficiencies. Chairman alluded to that as well. The Mona School of Business is back with us, and they have accepted our charge to review our structure. They have come in already. They have developed their work plan. They have submitted their inception report. They are meeting with the technical staff. They have presented to ETOC the work plan, and we are going into phase 1 of the process. So we have to complete the procurement activities surrounding that. But now we are there where the review will be done, and we are looking forward as a ministry to the outcome of that. We consider that to be 10% complete. As it relates to the support for our primary schools in particular, the committee, which is a Jamaica Education Transformation Committee, looked at the system and listened to our stakeholders. And of course, I know this recommendation, Vivian, came from our principals of our primary schools in particularly, because they had to be doing the accounting work as principal in addition to the instructional leadership and everything else, and so they clamored for support, and the commission said we need to put some support in our system. So we have begun a phased portfolio with this activity with the support of IDB, 50 of our schools, and the personnel from those schools. They have been trained already, and we are going to onboard them in this month. We have procured their laptops because they will need technical support in their schools as well, laptops, and they need to be networked, and they need to be, properly aligned to the ministry's network system for the system to work, because we are getting them on the government financial management information system in addition to an accounting software. So we are going to be learning from this onboarding in October, and then we will scale that going forward for the rest of the system. So we are getting there, and we are on track with this activity. As it relates to the reform of the culture fair in our ministry, that came out too in the recommendation from the Commission, and we have begun some work in that area. We have employed some persons within our organizational development and change management unit. We are proud to report that we have specialists in our ministry who are change management trained, and they will be running through the development activities surrounding the culture of fair and more so a culture of care in the ministry and commitment to excellence in service. That's what the mantra is right now. And so the team members have gone ahead to develop our own change management framework. They have gone ahead to select strategic persons within the ministry. We call them ambassadors, transformation ambassadors, similar to what we call change champions in other areas. And they have moved beyond the central ministry now to develop what we call a transformation portal, volunteer portal, to give legs into Jamaica. All those persons who want to help us with transformation, you may be on the periphery. Here is your opportunity. We have gone ahead and developed a portal, the Transformation Volunteer Portal or the Ambassador Volunteer Portal, for you to register and indicate how you can support us in the transformation. So the platform makes space for experts in our country. Chairman spoke about that, and he has been challenging us to say, how do we pull on the expert knowledge and skill in Jamaica? We may have people who are not teachers, who are not trained teachers, who may not want to be able to leave their 9 to 5, but can give 2 hours, 3 hours into a school, in their alma mater. Now is your opportunity, colleagues, to go onto this platform, sign on, and tell us how you want to support us. We have students. It caters for students, teachers, principals, support staff and parents, all key stakeholders in education, you can now have tentacles into the transformation by enrolling on this platform, and we will reach out to you, train you, and of course leverage your skill set and love and passion for education to drive the transformation forward. And of course, we have done the survey for our technical team and for the wider central ministry to kind of garner how people feel. You know, internal stakeholder, we have to manage that as well. So the change management team, they have been reaching out to the sector to hear from them, to determine how they feel about the transformation, if it's moving too fast, too slow, if they're aware of it, how did they become aware of it, and what else we can do to improve the rollout of the transformation. So massive work is going on in that area. Chairman spoke earlier to the JTC Act and the delays surrounding that, but we are proud. We can tell you Minister Parbs will allude to it in her remarks, because she's leading this in the Joint Select Committee in Parliament. We are finally through with the review of the submission from our many stakeholders, clause by clause review. It took longer than we anticipated, but we are finally there, and they are writing the report now for signing off by the Joint Select Committee. I must say, though, that because of the number of changes, we have to withdraw the bill that we submitted to make the changes and then to resubmit that bill, which accounts for why we reported this as lagging, but we are hopeful because this has far-reaching impact for the education system. So we are way down the wicket with this one. Just another highlight with respect to the amendment to the education regulation. This is a big one coming out of the Commission as well. And we have been doing this in pieces. We have a consultant, a legal consultant with us here in the ministry, working through the review of the ed regs, going through consultations and putting together some proposal as to how we can move towards the overall changes within the regulations. But we have moved with other pieces as it relates to the principalship and their appointments. We have gone ahead with doing the legal reviews for all the reviewing bodies. We have got the submission now reviewed by our minister. We have got the legal review from our parliament, and we are now ready to make the submission for further changes with respect to the appointment of our principals. So many pieces moving on in this area. As it relates to ECC, Pillar 2, I know Jamaica and I skipped? Oh, I didn't show it. ECC, right? Right. So the legislative review of our Early Childhood Commissions Act and regulations, that's ongoing. The team has gone through the tender process, and they have now closed that process off, and they're reviewing those bids to put work in hand for the review to be done by a consultant. But whilst that is happening, the team has begun the review of the policy, and as you know, the policy will inform the legislation. So we're about 10% down with this one, but work continues with the early childhood sector. The early childhood sector also has to treat with the rationalization of training and qualification for the sector. We all know how this sector evolved in Jamaica informally. We have our private partners in the sector, and we have a number of persons who are trained at different levels. We have to standardize this if we are serious about education. And in fact, because licensure is coming, our teachers in this sector, they need to be trained up to a bachelor's degree. And so we are creating parallel programs to treat with the in-service teachers so they can get to that level, and we are down the wicket with that. In addition to that, ECC continues to train our teachers throughout the process. For this quarter, over 300 early child practitioners got training from ECC, and we are very, very proud of that. As it relates to training as well, ECC has expanded the modules, and they have gone to Chase. And I must pause to recognize the support that Chase continues to provide for the early childhood sector. They fund, they do resources, they do infrastructure, every area that you can think of. And so ECC has gone back to them with a new module of training with more depth and rigor, aligned with 21st century standards and resources that will be needed by our practitioners, in addition to the improvement of the data bank for our teachers to have access to resources to grow. And we're awaiting support from Chase, and we know we will get the support. So ECC continues to improve in this area. As it relates to reaching out to building out our infant schools and making sure that our students with learning disabilities and other type of disabilities, they are catered for at the infant level, ECC has begun some work. We call it our legacy project. We're building out infant schools so all teachers and our students will have access eventually to an inclusive, holistic environment for learning. We were able to complete 4 upgrades in last quarter, and this quarter another 4. And we are really proud of the progress made by ECC in this area. That's to call our legacy projects for holistic education for our learners. ECC also has to continue the building out of the capacity of parents, and they continue to deliver that. They have gone into MOUs now with Heart NSTA Trust and NPSC to build out the training program through their parent places so parents can keep up with the needs of their students and can better support their infants in their learning journey. We are proud of this as well, and we want Jamaica to be aware that our Early Childhood Commission, they are leading the charge in the early childhood pillar under the transformation. As it relates to Pillar 3, which is teaching, curriculum, and teacher training, this is the big one, Jamaica. Most of the recommendations came under this pillar, and we have a lot to do. Of course, we do the routine stuff. We have to provide our grants. We have to put the curriculum out there. We have curriculum or curricula out there for almost all subject areas in addition to pathways. We have additional resources in the virtual space. We continue to do that as part of the norm for the support for the system. But this year, as the chairman alluded to, we have to dig a little deeper in light of what came out of the CSEC results this year. We are not pleased, Jamaica, and I know you are not pleased. And so we continue to go back to the drawing board. We call it our war room, to get some tactical strategies to improve the education system. So 2 things are working in this space now. We have the National School Improvement Framework. We have engaged that. If you follow what's happening in transformation, coming out of the first program, which is the task force report, we had some emerging agencies, the JTC, the Jamaica Teaching Council, we had ECC, we had NCE was there before, but we had NCEL and others. Coming out of that report, we were charged to pull these special purpose vehicles together to drive the transformation, especially for underperforming schools. We have re-engaged that framework this year, and all those entities, NCEL, JTC, NCE, NPSC, in addition to the DSS, they will be working deliberately together to pull their resources to serve 245 schools in particular. Not that we're not reaching the others, but we are targeting, as the chairman has said to us, how can we pull what we have and maximize with those who need us more? And these 245 schools are our schools deemed as needing immediate support, or they're unsatisfactory in their NEI ratings, which means they are underperforming. Right? And it means also that those are the schools with attendance issues, etc. So we are targeting those schools under the framework this year. In addition to the tactical strategy the chairman alluded to, where we are looking at how can we extend learning support for both teachers and students, how can we improve the accountability framework in our system so we can get more from what we have. We do need to pay attention to that, and that happens in every organization. You must intend to do better and to maximize on what you have. And of course, we have to track performance and we have to celebrate successes. So that's part of the tactical strategy that will be coming into play in a deliberate way this year for the 245 schools. And Chairman alluded to this, I won't spend a lot of time, but it's just to show that we're asking Jamaica to stay positive with us. There's reason for optimism, colleagues, Jamaicans, because we can show that the tactical efforts we employed last year that I referenced at the primary level, we got support and we got success coming out of that, where we spent time with our teachers, building their capacity, supporting them through the process. And there it is, we have our students looking much better as we now are able to track a full profile of our learners from the primary exit profile from grade 4 to grade 6. And I'm sure you are feeling better than you would have felt in 2022 when we had 27% of our learners at the beginning for language arts, and now we only have 3%. And whilst we do not want students there, we are not going to be able to fully avoid that based on how we report, because we do have special education needs. And so these students are involved in the overall calculation of performance. But if you pull them out, it perhaps will look a little differently. But as it is now in the full sum, we have a 3% there that we still have to do work with. And we support these students when they transition in the secondary system under the secondary pathway program. All right, so they are not left behind. But I'm again showing you that we have reasons for optimism. And if you look at mathematics, for 2022, we had almost 50% of our learners at the beginning stage. Now we have only 7%. So Jamaicans, I crave your patience with us. We are going to do this together, all hands on deck. So there are reasons for optimism. And of course, this other slide is just showing you the other areas. The first slide didn't bring up the social studies and the science, but here in this slide at the bottom, you will see the difference. In 2023, we're at 64% for the science. 2024, we're at 70%. And in social studies, we were at 67% in 2023. In 2024, we are at 72%. Reasons for optimism. We can do this together. With focus and with tactical strategies, we can do this. Of course, the chairman alluded to math. I couldn't share the optimism. We're not focusing as well on the gaps. We are not pleased, but I must say to Jamaica, and it's not an excuse, what we are seeing is the impact of the pandemic. You would understand with me that these are the learners who were disrupted in grade 7, 8, and perhaps part of grade 9. They were out of the learning environment at the onset of the pandemic. So their foundational years were disrupted. We couldn't find some of them. Even with the continuity, we had problems with technology. They never had parental support in some of the homes. So this is really what has happened. Not that we are saying this is an excuse, but we have to accommodate for the disruptions. And believe me, this is what we are seeing. And it happened in the regional space. We saw the performance for the region going down in mathematics to the previous year. It was 43%. It went down to 36% in the region. And of course, Jamaica, with our public schools, we were above the regional performance, though we are not satisfied for both language and math. We equaled the regional score for language, but we are not going to be comforted by the fact that we outperform the regional average. We want more because we know we are the gold standard and we ought to do better for our learners. But there's reason for optimism. These slides are just to show that one of the recommendations spoke to having alternative assessment for our learners because we recognize the differences in our learners. One size will not fit all. So in the same way, we have different schools, different pursuits, we have different assessment for students. So this is a City and Guilds exam, and of course we sent up over 10,000 learners for math, and we had a 56% success rate at that. And similarly for the language arts, I think we were in the 70s, 76% for the language arts. We sent up over 11,000, almost 12,000 students in City and Guilds. So we are catering for the differences in our learners, and students are excelling at the different assessments. We want to celebrate that. Chairman alluded to the development of the philosophy for education, and I must confess, Jamaica, we spent an entire year trying to get this together, doing the consultations with all stakeholders. We are finally there, but we are committed to the promulgation and the promotion of the philosophy so it can become the center of how learning is organized at the school level, in our home, at the ministry. We continue to reiterate the importance of this and sharing this at our principal conferences in the summer, and we have gone to publishing these, printing them and distributing them to schools. So that's ongoing to make sure that everybody is aware of the philosophy. We went through the private sector consultation, we went through the churches, we went through the young people, the students, every key stakeholder group we went to talk about the philosophy before we could agree on the final paragraph that's driving the transformation at this time. So we continue to do the promotion of that. One of the recommendations spoke to equipping the primary schools, and we want to talk about this because we know the importance of this. We want to recognize today the JISTV Foundation. They continue to work with us. We signed another 3 MOUs with them. They are building out smart rooms in our primary schools for us. And I'm telling you, you should visit some of these schools. I've highlighted some names and to see the wonderful work that is being done in these schools. And we are grateful. This will take us up to 21 smart rooms available to our schools with the support of JISTV, but we also continue to provide e-resources as part of the ICT support for our learners. The grade 4 students are getting the Learning Hub software licenses. We have Cheetah for grade 4 to 6, and we have Book Fusion that powers our e-library, right? So students have access to reading materials right throughout, and of course, you download, you access, and you move. This is very important. We continue to provide laptops for our primary schools to build out their labs, especially the literacy labs, and this has been supported by eLearning Jamaica. We are grateful. So with e-learning, we're able to distribute 3,000 laptops across our primary schools. We have been able to distribute interactive books and projectors, and they are now in procurement for another 8,000 laptops to build out labs in our primary schools. And overall, even though this is not only primary schools, we have seen where we have distributed 25,822 laptop vouchers for teachers, and we are seeing where 24,678 teachers have redeemed their vouchers and have laptops at their access to help with their teaching and learning. And this includes the teaching cohort at the infant and primary level. So we are very grateful for that, and we want to celebrate that. As Chairman said, we're on track, right? So we're rolling out targeted training programs for teachers. And I alluded to the Jamaica Teaching Council earlier, which is an emergent agency coming out of the last task force report. They continue to manage the coordination of the training days for our teachers. We were able to run some training programs in the summer. But most importantly, I need to say this. So JTC has gone to build out their learning management system, building out programs, short course programs for our teachers. So we don't now need to rely on us shutting down the system and calling out people. We are trying to engender a culture of self-directed learning, self-paced learning, which is a thrust in the international space, and Jamaica is in alignment. So all teachers in Jamaica, you can go onto our learning management system from the JTC and access professional development programs. Teachers in the private schools, teachers at the infant schools, teachers at the every level, there is something there for you. Of course, JTC is in high gear coordinating the first training day, which is going to be done in the midterm here in October, when we're anticipating touching at least 23,000 teachers through the coordination with our schools and, of course, access to the platform. And for those specific teachers who will be pulled out for the tactical strategy to help with math and English, numeracy and literacy at the primary level. So big work going on, and we are proud of this. The Higher Education Act and Policy, we have made some rounds with this as well. We have now gone through all the review process. All the reviewing bodies have now commented, and now we are preparing the Cabinet submission for our Minister's final review and signature so we can advance to the Cabinet for a decision, and then that will seek to get it to the next step. So we are getting there for the tertiary sector. We are also supporting the tertiary sector in looking at their operational structure. The recommendation called for that. In the same way we're looking at the Ministry of Education for fit for purpose, we have to do that for the tertiary sector as well. And we are doing that in pieces. We are looking at their human resource structure and giving them some autonomy surrounding that. We have to do the assessment of the colleges, especially with the help of the Ministry of Finance, to see that they have adequate human resource, and then the approvals will come for us to increase that or to better deploy those resources since they're under subvention and the budget. We have gone into developing JDs for our public higher education institution. Yes, those were lacking, and we did not have a proper appraisal system or document for our instructors and principal at that level, and we are moving down the wicket in developing those templates to drive the accountability as alluded to by the chairman. We have also gone into the prior learning and assessment recognition through the work of JTC. So if you're out there in the sector, JTEC, if you're out there in the sector and you have been working in a particular area for a long time, but you do not have formal certification, now the Ministry of Education has gone into the PLAR where you can be assessed on the job. We value your experience by awarding credits, and you can get certification through that. We have built out our tertiary institutions, some of them, to be able to do that. So if you're there, just get in touch with JTEC and we will guide you and help you to get certification for your experience over the years and to move you back on track for formal training as you develop yourself. So, you know, the Ministry of Education is on a roll with that. As it relates to TVET, Pillar 6, we're getting there. We continue to invest, especially in our high school for TVET. The Hart NSTA Trust, through what we call an appropriation in aid, they give the Ministry of Education $400 million annually. And throughout the transformation process, we have committed to directing all of that resource, most of it, in our high schools, to rebuild the labs so they can be 21st century, to upgrade the teacher training, and to celebrate best practices in TVET. Of course, we have targeted some amount of the resources at the primary level to support the resource and technology introduction at the primary level. That will whet the appetite for TVET at the higher level for the high school. So this is something we are proud of. We were able to disburse funds to our schools. Almost 200 million went out this year in the first tranche to support our schools. And of course, these are some of the labs, some of the high schools that will be getting exemplary labs, which means 21st century labs. And we are specifically focused on building out our technical high schools first and foremost, because that is what they were designed to do, right? So we are re-equipping them. So St. Mary Tech, Ozemarty Tech, Veritech, these are some of our special schools. And at the end of this financial year, we should have 10 of our schools fully equipped with exemplary labs, whilst others, another 50 schools, will get upgrade of some labs as we continue to do this over the transformation period. Jamaica, reason for optimism. We are getting there. This has to do with training as well, I mentioned, for our educators in the area. We continue to do project learning training for them, STEM training for them, e-design. That's ongoing because remember, the system cannot exceed the quality of its teachers, so we have to build and build. So professional development has no end. That is continuous right throughout the learning program, right through the implementation of education. So we are grateful that the work continues in that area. And of course, Chairman alluded to the infrastructure, and I must again reiterate my gratitude to all the technocrats who worked with us, the contractors, everybody who worked with us to get the repairs done for our 361 schools. Overall, we are reporting at 85% completion, because some of the activities are ongoing, but schools are in operation. That is most important. So big up for that, and we invested an additional 3 billion, Minister, 3.9 billion under the infrastructure portfolio to get this done. But our regular budget continues to see our preparation for fencing for some schools, electrical support for some schools. We have 10 schools getting electrical support this year, 11 schools getting fencing, and they are at different phases throughout the process, but we are on target. We had 87 schools being impacted by the maintenance budget, $440 million being invested in these 87 schools. Not enough, but we have been able to assist these schools in their readiness for the teaching and learning environment. And of course, NET, our National Education Trust, one of our emerging agencies, they deal with the massive infrastructure programs for us. They have 19 schools that they are focusing on this year. 2 schools have been completed for expansion, and we are grateful. And they are expending $1.9 billion this year. And I'm stating it publicly because I know the director is here, and I want her to hear that we must spend all $1.9 billion. Right, Minister?
Yes.
Thank you. So, accountability, Chairman. And of course, I said all of that already. Building standards, the recommendation talks about green building strategies for our schools. So we have gone down the wicket of doing consultancy to get building standards for our primary schools, developed with 21st century portfolio responsibility in mind, looking at how we can get our schools green. We now have the standards for the high schools, and that will guide us to do consultancy, Minister, and the building out of our STEM schools. And now we went back into consultancy for the standards for infant and primary schools, and that is 80% complete. The draft is with us. We are to review, send some feedback, and by this quarter, this will be approved. And now we have established 21st century standards that will guide the establishment of new schools and the improvement that we will engage in for existing schools, getting them green and smart and solar rich and all you can think of. Security cameras continue to be an important part of what we do given the security issues in our schools. We have made some advances this year, another 8 schools. They have been in the budget. We are doing the consultancy for this. And of course, we went into a broader consultancy for a massive program to be designed to address all schools. We are looking at a preliminary $7-point-something billion, Minister. So we have a consultant working through the design for us so we can go back through the PIAB process and get budget space and the capital budget for this so we are not doing a piecemeal process. This is the extent of the transformation. Infrastructure, of course, broadband is part of infrastructure and IT. We are down the wicket again. We are about 46% complete in this area. More schools now have access to the internet in the school, the promulgation, the access anywhere you can. right? So we have 317 schools now able to access the internet anywhere on their campus. We are building that out, and we are grateful. But we have more work to do. We are in the procurement process for 696 schools to get those up and running, and we are committed to that over the next 2 years to complete. Finance. Work has begun. I must report to the public that we went back into our budget as Minister instructed us to look at what we have got from the government and to see how we can support our small schools, our infant schools, and we have realigned our budget, reallocated our budget, and we were able to add an additional $480 million in the grants for our infant and primary schools, predominantly our small schools, and some of them will see an increase of up to 39% in their operational grants. We have had principals call us back to say they have seen the significant difference and they are grateful. We're also getting their janitors and so forth and their cooks on the formal establishment to remove that kind of demand and their, their janitorial grants and their innovative skills on the ground. We are taking those on in the next phase of the work. So we continue to be proud of that. As I indicated earlier, we targeting the high school with the AIA from Heart through the government of Jamaica, and that $400 million will be invested in addition to what the high schools normally get, back into the high schools over the period of the transformation to build out the TVET labs. We are working through some private infant schools at the early childhood level, about 21 of them, to transfer them or convert them or modernize them. We use the term modernization into infant schools, which means that they're going to be publicly funded schools on the government budget, and about 1,000 infants will be impacted by this, and work is being done to take these schools on for January. Our minister challenged us to look at the expanse of the early childhood sector. We have about 2,348 early childhood institutions in the country, and part of the modernization is to make sure that there's a trained teacher in every institution. And when we did our assessment under the instruction of our minister, we found 108, I think, schools that are operating, but they do not have trained teachers. So what we have done is to cost that, and we are developing a cabinet submission to take that to secure funding so we can have, as part of modernization, at least one trained teacher in every early childhood institution as part of the thrust to have a successful early childhood sector. We won't be able to convert all the infant or basic schools to infant schools because there's an active private process in Jamaica. In the same way we do not convert our prep schools to primary schools, they are actively there and they are serving. Some basic schools and early childhood institutions, they will remain private. It is understood. But the ECC will make sure that they are meeting the standards. And whatever we need to do, we will support them. And part of that, especially in our public-private basic schools, we have to make sure that there's a trained teacher there. So that is something we are working on in the next quarter. School feeding is a part of what Chairman alluded to with the absenteeism. Nutrition is a problem, and we work through the Ministry of Labour and Social Security with this. We are really the conduit in making sure the grants reach the children for their nutritional support. But I must report that as it relates to finance, the government of Jamaica maintained the increase of $2 billion in this area. Last year we got $2 billion, and this year we got the $2 billion again. And we just want to recognize that as increased support for feeding and for students in need. Increased tertiary support for students in need that came through. The recommendation, it talks about education for the poor. That's how it's expressed in the Commission's report. Through, again, the support of our minister, we were able to distribute $189 million for low-income families using the constituency framework and working through our members of parliament. So that is something we did this year, and we are grateful. We continue to support the student loan. We have written to them to advocate for some of our students who are pursuing medical programs and alternative programs, but we're unable to access student loan. We have sent through an appeal on behalf of the students to create that access for them, and student loan is reviewing such to get back to us. And of course, the government removal of guarantors for student loans that remains in effect, and that again creates access for education for the poor. So these are what we have accomplished. And this is just a picture of how we have broken down our budget under the finance portfolio. And I must say thanks again to my internal architecture for making sure that we were able to send out the grants ahead of time You know, with the burial and everything, Minister said, let's get the grants earlier out. And we were able to distribute or disburse $3.5 billion in August with everything else. Because this is due in September, we were able to get ahead of time so the schools would have funding to fix their operations and to get ready for learning. And I'm grateful to the team for that. So this is the breakdown, and this is how we continue to resource the system. And those, colleagues, are just some highlights of what we have accomplished in the last 3 months. You see, I'm tired? It means that it's a lot of work. And these are just some of the recommendations that I'm sharing with you, but more so important ones that you need to be aware of. So thank you very much for listening, colleagues.
Thank you so very much, PS. Am I the only one impressed? No? Oh, we have a great task, but lots have been done and a lot more will be done. I'm proud to be a part of the Ministry of Education and Youth. At this moment, help me greet or welcome our Minister, Honorable Favour Williams. Right after that, we'll take our question and answers. Make her welcome.
Thank you so much. I think after the presentation from our chairman and our permanent secretary, I can just say amen, right? And go right to question and answer. But let me add as well that it is indeed a pleasure to be here at this third quarterly Education Transformation Oversight Committee ETOC press briefing for the 2024 calendar year. It is in keeping with the recommendations, as you know, of the Jamaica Education Transformation Commission report for us to stand up and make known to Jamaicans periodically what is the progress and what are the results of transformation. So at this point, let me acknowledge, of course, the chairman of ETOC, Dr. Adrian Stokes, our permanent secretary, and all the team members who work to make it happen so we can report these results that we're reporting this morning. As a reminder, in 2020, Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, commissioned Professor Orlando Patterson to lead a well-needed and extensive review of our education sector. And I know that many Jamaicans know this, but in a world in which there's a lot of information that bombards us, we have to repeat and repeat and repeat so that persons will eventually get it. So after carefully analyzing and becoming intimate with every agency and aspect of the education sector, Professor Orlando Patterson and his team noted gaps and many areas for strengthening. We have to repeat again that there are some 365 recommendations. And in 2022, the Education Transformation Oversight Committee, ETOC, was established to monitor the execution and implementation of these recommendations. To note, ETOC itself was a recommendation. So this report, the study that was done, also looked at prior studies way back. They saw lots of recommendations then and only partial implementation. So it said one of the gaps is to have an oversight committee. And here we are. This oversight committee has been meeting with us on a weekly basis. Only if it's a holiday, we don't meet. And it has religiously been reporting to the public. And in addition to that, I have been taking the reports and laying them in Parliament and discussing them from time to time in Parliament. Only this past Tuesday, I stood up to have that discussion in Parliament as well. I know that what Jamaicans really want to see out of transformation are fully bright students, excelling in subject areas such as maths, English, the sciences, and the technology. Jamaicans also want to see students who are socio-emotionally balanced, students who can navigate their way with grace and astuteness, students who are kind to each other, who show empathy, not bullyism, and that Jamaica is excelling globally, not just in sports and the arts, but in academics at all levels as well. That is what we want to see out of transformation. We have hope. And you heard our two presenters so far explain why we have this hope, explain why we have optimism across many of the subjects that students sat at CSEC level. The pass rates are in the range of 70 to 85%. We've seen higher pass rates in AdMat, agricultural science, single award, biology, chemistry, industrial technology, building, human and social biology, and physics relative to the pass rates in, let's say, 2023 last year. And we could talk about what we're seeing at the Cape level as well. Those are very good pass rates there. In Unit 2 in Cape, pass rates were even in the 95 to 100% range. So we have to celebrate our students when they perform. It's not all gloom and doom in the sector. We recognize that there is a lot of work still to be done. But again, when our students do well, we have to celebrate them and celebrate the teachers as well. You heard earlier on the improvements that we're seeing in the PEP exams as we look at the same set of students transitioning across the years. I know in math we have to have consistent intervention, and the chairman and PS spoke to that, and in a short order we will present in a more fulsome way our intervention efforts focused on better teaching methods among some of the initiatives targeted. And so today, if I say we are trending, you can understand why. We're trending in terms of the information that we're giving to Jamaicans to help them understand this vast sector called education. You know, people look at this behemoth and they don't really understand everything about it. It's our responsibility to do that because there are so many parts to it. All they tend to see is the end result. So we have to help them understand the input into this, their role as well as parents or as other stakeholders in this. I know PS and the chairman spoke to the number of initiatives, especially those which we have started, 136. They did highlight that one is lagging and that one belongs to me. That's the Jamaica Teaching Council bill. But let me remind Jamaicans that on February 10th, 2022, I took a motion to Parliament. That's how long ago we started working on the JTC bill. This motion was to appoint a joint select committee to deliberate on the bill. The first sitting was February 15, 2022, and the JTC bill, just to remind you, is to regulate the practice and professional conduct of teachers and instructors to do the assessment of the qualification of teachers among other tasks that they are supposed to do. We meet in Parliament to discuss, and if you've ever watched a Joint Select Committee meeting, you will understand just the detailed nature of what it is that you have to do. We're talking about going word by word, comma by comma, to go through a bill to get it to a final stage. Where we are now, we have completed the Joint Select Committee process, but then that culminates into a very detailed report about our deliberations in Parliament. And then we had to go through that report line by line and agree to everything that's in the report, disagree, amend the report as we go along. That report is finished now, and then that report gets fed into the final bill. So you heard PS talk about the fact that we are going to have to withdraw the current one that's tabled at Parliament because there were so many changes, and those changes came about as well because we allowed a period when organizations, individual persons could come into Parliament and bring a submission that says, I don't agree with what's in this current bill. Here are, here's my opinion. And we sat and listened, took notes, and then after the process was completed, we had to go through all those submissions and decide, whether or not we could incorporate them in the bill. So I'm only saying all of that because it's a very time-consuming process that we have to go through. We could have just gone to Parliament, laid the bill, discuss it, and pass it. But given the significance of the bill and the fact that this was called for more than 20 years ago, we had to allow this broad consultation of it. So here we are. We have hope that one day I will stand up in Parliament and, say this bill has been passed. Right. So in concluding, I want to say to Jamaicans, transformation of education is no small or easy task, and that's not, an excuse for us. It will be continuing for at least another 6 years. We're 2 years into it. When we look at it, we figured it would be over a period of time. So, of course, we're going to have to persevere. We need to stick with it, because that's the only chance we have to give each and every Jamaican child access to the high-quality education that they deserve. I know many times we start initiatives, with great enthusiasm and excitement, and then it wanes. Not so. We've been at this 2 years, and if anything, the level of excitement and enthusiasm is growing because we're seeing results of our efforts so far. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and I think we go to questions. All right.
Thank you so very much, Minister. And we do have our question and answers. A number of our reporters have joined online, so I'll be reading them here because we're trending after all. The first one is from the Gleaner, and it is, there have been calls from experts and even Prime Minister Holness for a review of how and what students are taught at the primary level. How does the implementation of Trend accommodate for this?
Thank you so much for that question. So that would be aligned to Pillar 3, teaching, teacher training, and the curriculum. And of course, we heard our Prime Minister about the concerns with respect to the assessment, PEP, and our Minister has charged us to go back to the drawing board, which means that we will have to put together a consultancy because we can't evaluate ourselves. And we have not got a chance to evaluate the existing curriculum. We rolled this out in 2016, and we have had a number of disruptions since then. But every 5 to 10 years, it's a part of the architecture of education to review your curriculum. So that is built into the process of transformation, and that report will guide us in terms of what needs to be done. But as the Prime Minister intimated, the PEP itself, the stressors attendant to that is really about the competition for space. So the assessment, as it is now, is aligned to the national standards curriculum. It cannot be anything else. So what we assess is what is in the curriculum. The execution of the curriculum is a matter in terms of the experts and how it's done. And we have seen improvement in that, given the improvement in the PEP scores. But the stressors attendant to that really is about the traditional spaces that our parents and our students are competing for. The real work in transformation is to get all schools to that standard. Because whatever assessment you put in the space, you're going to have competition. It's a meritocracy. And that will generate stress on parents and students to get the best spaces. So the work, the tactical strategies, is to bring all our secondary level institutions up to standard. So wherever our students go, they feel confident that they will get the best education. That's really the work of transformation. But notwithstanding education, we must evaluate our assessment practices and we must evaluate our curriculum. That will be done.
Thank you. We're trying to get another microphone. Here are some other questions. I'll do two at this time. What are the initiatives that will be put in place to address the low math passes? And another, Dr. Stokes mentioned extended learning hours and greater teacher support. What are the definitive steps that will be taken towards this? And when will this begin? Will this be the next school year?
Yes, the tactical strategy is within this school year. So the four things Dr. Stokes alluded to. We're looking at extended learning for our learners and, of course, teacher support. How that will unpack this year is that we have gone into the 245 schools, and this includes 56 secondary level institutions. And we have pulled out their data in terms of their performance. We have looked to see how they rolled out their learning program in terms of the time allotted on the curriculum, on the timetable within schools to execute the syllabi for the assessments that they do. And we're going to be helping our schools to do that differently. So when you look, for example, at math, CXC syllabus said that they need 3.3 hours per week so they can complete the syllabus in 2 years. We have not done that well, right? Because when we looked at some of our timetables, our students were not getting the full sum experience. We also know that most of our learners do well because they go to private classes and extra lessons. That, in essence, is extended learning. So what we will do is to bring that into the formal process by increasing the time and task on the timetable to 5 hours of mathematics per week in these project schools that we are working with. That's it, the primary schools and the 56 high schools for the numeracy and literacy at the primary level and the English and math at the secondary. So we are increasing time and task in the area that we have control over. In addition to that, we are providing extended learning support through our softwares, right? And through our additional learning kits. We have gone into developing what we call these again, codes, barcodes, right? Where we're going to be putting across, where we have our bus stops and spaces where students gather, we'll be putting up barcodes that they can scan and get practice questions right where they are. So there's learning on the go when they are traveling so they can maximize time and task. We're also promulgating the concept of self-directed learning, where students will also have to include in their preparation maximizing on time they have available to them. So at home, on the bus, on the weekend, we're putting resources in their space in small bites that they can access. That's the extent of the extended learning that we can control. We will also do camps that will be organized by our coaches and specialists, and virtual camps, face-to-face camps at the high school level, primary level, to get our students extended opportunities of controlled learning experiences. We're also looking at assessing our math teachers. The committee challenged us to pull the data of the number of teachers we have available to us, come up with a categorization of these teachers, those who are trained and those who have demonstrated excellence in the pass rate of the learners versus those who are untrained or those who are not suitably deployed, etc. And we have come up with 4 categories of these teachers. And then we had to put together a toolkit. What will these teachers get as support, teacher support, to improve math? And so that will look like common planning time, which is something we saw when we went to China to look at how teachers timetable this. It wasn't optional. Teachers were brought into a session within their departments by subject areas, and they planned for learning. We're bringing in the AI into that. So no longer should it be a manual process. We can now speak to AI and tell AI what we want, who is the learner, and they will create something for us that we can build on and, of course, modify further in this space. So we're building that in for the teacher support. We're harnessing links of learning, all the little things out there. If you are weak on algebra, weak on trigonometry, we're pulling the links in those, and we're creating a repository for each teacher that teacher will have access to grow in that area, in addition to the coaches and the specialists that we will deploy to the system. So that's the nature of the tactical approach. It's a lot more when you unpack it, but those are some of the things we have put together. And of course, big in that is the professional development that you will see in this month for October. When we pull out some of these teachers, we're going to do some hands-on work with them. And of course, help our principals to better resource these institutions so teachers have access to adequate resources to drive the teaching of math. So those are some of the things we have discussed, and we are in active planning. I'm talking about it because it's actually happening.
Thank you, PS. I don't know about the question about the hours. Yeah, I know you answered that bit. Somebody was asking about the school year, but it is being worked on. Additional questions that we have: what programs are in place for special needs students in rural communities? And does the MOEY have active programs or any other modes of assistance for autistic students and or their families, including autistic children of all school ages?
Well, I'll start off by saying that we're proud of the efforts that we make at the Ministry of Education and Youth to cater to students with special needs. We partner with private enterprise or institutions in the event or in cases in which we don't have that particular skill in-house. If you look at the education system currently, we do have some 20, was it 17? 17. The private enterprise? Yes, we partner with 17 private enterprises, schools, to place students with special needs, and we pay for that service that's provided. Within the school system, we try as best as we can to integrate the special needs students into schools if they can manage that environment. Otherwise, we have them separately in a different school, depending on the level of need. I know that we have assisted students as well with shadows. There's a new name for that now, special education assistants, to do a variety of activities with students. It could mean accompanying them to school or from school to home, be in the classroom if the students need someone to read to them, to go to the bathroom, and so on. And there are almost 400 of those persons in the system currently this year, and we're putting in more this year. And that's paid for by the Ministry of Education and Youth. We recognize that there is new information that comes periodically about different special needs. Now in 2024, I think we're all more aware of autism and that our children can be anywhere on that spectrum. Even adults could be on the spectrum. So we're learning about that. We are learning what it is that we need to provide for children who have been diagnosed as being on the spectrum. Additionally, I am proud because 2 years ago, we started doing a full assessment of children as soon as they get to age 4 in the system, all of our students across the system. And we do that to give us a sense of what's the ability in terms of early numeracy, early literacy, and to see if there are any special needs that can be identified at that age and to provide the support for it. Because the earlier you're able to identify it, the better, because then you can deal with it. And we will continue doing that assessment each year so that we can identify those children and provide the support that they need. P.S., I don't know if you want to add anything else, but I believe that if you were to do an assessment of what we provide as special needs, I believe that we would rank high in terms of what we provide. That's not to say that we are perfect in what we do. I know there are many needs out there. We get lots of requests for the shadows, and we respond, but I'm sure there are needs that we still have to begin to incorporate in what we do. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I don't see any new questions. So at this time, if we have any questions or commendation from anyone who is in the audience, now is the time for it. Do we have any? None right now? If that is the case, then thank you so very much for being here today. Thank you for being a part of the process. Thank you for witnessing the progress that we are making. I know that there's much more to, there is one? Okay, sorry about that. So as I was saying, thank you so very much for being here. We're grateful that you have been a part of this press conference, and it's very important that everyone knows what's happening within the Ministry of Education and Youth. We're so grateful to ETOC because many wonderful things are happening based on what you would have heard from our PS just now. And sometimes people are just unaware. So we're going to do better in making sure that you know what is happening within the ministry, because we're transforming not for us, but for every single Jamaican. On that note, thank you so very much and have a wonderful rest of the afternoon. There's coffee break outside because you've been here with us for a while.
In a globalized world where nations must empower their people to become innovative citizens, Jamaica is ready to set the trend, transforming education for national development. Led by the Ministry of Education and Youth, the mission is for a brighter tomorrow. The 2021 Patterson Report made it clear: we need to ensure better quality education throughout all levels of the system. While the ministry will lead the charge, we need all stakeholders to get into position to help Jamaica become a more globally competitive nation. Students, educators, parents, civil society, business people, media and communities. Jamaicans across all sectors can play a role. The journey to a brighter tomorrow starts now. Deliberate action is being taken on 7 strategic priorities up to 2030. 7 pillars of change to transform education. Better governance for better outcomes. Efficient spending and enhanced strategic focus. Improved and equitable access to quality early childhood education. Improved quality of teaching and curriculum delivery. A higher education sector that is coherent, equitable and well-resourced. Developing critical thinking, lifelong learners who are creative, innovative and productive, contributing to the country's sustainable development. Technical, vocational education and training built into the secondary level to support the development of entrepreneurial skills. World-class facilities and infrastructure in a technology-enabled sector, and increased access at all levels of the system to equitable and sustainable funding. These are the 7 keys to unlocking our next level of exceptional learners and critical thinkers. With a lifelong desire to learn, Jamaica's youth have the power to not only elevate their own standard of living, but also to enhance the well-being of all Jamaica. As we push forward with Trend, we will create educational systems of success, assigning the best people to manage the process. Give more attention to early childhood education so we can stimulate excellent learner performance from the start. Empower our educators to create learning experiences that transform minds and lives for greater impact. Build an aligned network of tertiary learning institutions focused on delivering accreditations that strengthen the impact of our tertiary graduates. Provide physical and technological learning spaces that deliver equitable access and resources to all types of learners, and optimize educational budgets and resources to guarantee greater results from early childhood to tertiary level learning.
So that Jamaica may under God increase in beauty, fellowship, and prosperity, and play her part in advancing the welfare of the whole human race.
Let's trend so Jamaica will continue to be prosperous and more globally competitive. Trend, transforming education for national development, changing minds, changing lives for a brighter tomorrow.